Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of the state of Michigan, my home state. And everybody thinks that Gretchen Whitmer could be president of the United States. In fact, according to this new book about the 2024 election, Barack Obama wanted Gretchen Whitmer to get the nomination over Kamala Harris. Now, personally, I think Gretchen Whitmer is a complete and total disaster, and she was awful during COVID-19 and the pandemic and the rules that she made for everybody. And she broke her own rules, by the way, as well as her husband in Michigan during the lockdown protocols that she put forth. That said, when you're a Democrat, you get away with this stuff. And she's from the Midwest. Everybody thinks, oh, she's reasonable. She can win the Midwest. She can win Michigan. We got to win Michigan again. You know how they think. All right, so she wants to do business with President Trump, specifically having to do with some industry and some military contracts for the state of Michigan. So she visited the White House. This is what responsible governors do, and she deserves some credit for that. So while she was in the White House waiting to have her meeting with President Trump, the staff ushered her into the Oval Office while Trump was finishing up some business. Trump saw her there while the cameras were rolling, and this is what happened.
Gotten into any of the other lakes yet? Because you would think it would be pretty easy because they're all sort of connected. Governor?
It's why we're working so hard to make sure that, we work with the Army Corps and erect a barrier so that the Asian carp can't get into Lake Michigan. It'll devastate the ecosystem, the economy, tourism, and it's 20% of the world's fresh water is in the Great Lakes, Mr. President, which is why it's so important that as a nation, we protect the pristine waters. Yep.
And, all of a sudden, I assume the lakes are all interconnected, right? Yeah. So at some point, they're going to be in the other lakes. And so we're going to work hard on that. I spoke with...
So there you go. There's a governor working with the president. She's a Democrat. She campaigned hard for Kamala Harris. He's a Republican. He's Trump, the bad orange man. But they're working. They're getting along. There you go. That helps Gretchen Whitmer's career advancement, right? So she can say, hey, I can work with people, right? And by the way, after her meeting, she actually had some things to say specifically about the tariffs.
Behind the tariffs. And I can tell you, here's where President Trump and I do agree. We do need to make more stuff in America, more cars and chips, more steel and ships. We do need fair trade.
There you go. So this is where I agree with President Trump. And this is where I get, listen, automotive industry is there, right? She's got the UAW workers that the Democrats have basically lost at this point. So she's trying to put together this whole narrative that she's pro-American labor and pro-American worker and pro-manufacturing and Trump is right about tariffs, stuff like that, right? Okay, great. But here's what happened. Over the weekend, the New York Times released a photograph of Gretchen Whitmer. At least we think it's Gretchen Whitmer. You see, what happened was when they ushered her into the Oval Office, I don't think she realized that the media was in the room. And when the New York Times photographer's lens turned and pointed toward her, she did this. She... What is she acting like she's studying up on the meeting? Like she's reading her notes? God, that is such an... With George Washington hovering above her. Profiles in Courage by Gretchen Whitmer. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Oh, I better study up before I meet with the president. I better read this. Did she think she was going to hide? What does she think this is, like a Harry Potter cloaking device or something? Do you remember that old sitcom Soap where the character Richard Mulligan thought that he could go invisible just by doing this? I'm dating myself now. That's a great show, though. So she sees that there's a photographer there. She freaks out, and her gut instinct is to hide her face. Oh, maybe I'll just do that. Maybe they won't know it's me. If I just put this folder in front of myself, I'll disappear. I'll just blend into the background. We're all wearing blue anyway, aren't we? Like they didn't know it was there. The caption, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan found herself in the Oval Office this week. Not for a one-on-one meeting with President Trump, but an appearance before the press corps. She temporarily shielded herself from the cameras. So it's probably the greatest reporting that the New York Times has done in the last several years. And of course, it was because it was a photographer, not an actual reporter. Photographers are cut from a different cloth than the J School reporters that work at the New York Times. So this is now the indelible impression of who Gretchen Whitmer is. I mean, if J.D. Vance has to run against her in the general election in 2028, the first round of advertisements have just been written. This is the courageous, stand your ground, stand your principles, reasonable, I can reach out and work with the other side, Governor Whitmer, that she'd like you to think she is. Look at that. She's a punchline, as well she should be. By the way, before this image was released to the public, she and her press team went on a little bit of a publicity campaign to try to spin for the media exactly how her meeting with Trump went. So take a look at the way she wanted the world to think she approached the Oval Office.
How was the Oval Office yesterday?
Well, I think you heard the young man in there. You got to show up, right?
Okay. Did he
You want results, you got to show up. So
Did he
I'm
make you feel
showing up for Michigan.
Did he make you feel comfortable?
I did not know. They walked me in. I thought I was going into our private meeting, and of course it was that press conference. But I did have the opportunity to chat with the president, as you heard him say, some great things about Selfridge, about protecting the Great Lakes. And I also, the primary purpose was to talk about the ice storm and the recovery that is ongoing.
Can I just say, she sort of freaks me out. There's something really, really odd about her. Like I don't know if she's had work on her face or she's over grooming her eyebrows but just with the angular face. And listen, I'm no, Hollywood movie star, nor do I try to be. And it has nothing to do with whether she's pretty or not. It's there's like this hard angular edge to her that sort of reminds me of everybody's ex-wife or everybody's evil stepmother. Like at any given moment, she is just going to lose it and have a conniption on you. She likes always on the brink of having one of those fits, right? Like she's talking to you very intently, and then the next thing you know, she's screaming at you to unload the dishwasher. Do you know what I'm saying? But what was that thing she said at the very beginning about her responsibility as the governor of Michigan? What was it again?
The Oval Office yesterday.
Well, I think you heard the young man in there. You got to show up, right?
You got to show up. Gretchen Whitmer, you got to show up. Yeah. You got to show up, man. That's Gretchen Whitmer showing up. Like I said, she freaks me out. Not just because of that, not just because well, here's the problem. When I think of Gretchen Whitmer, I go right back to this bizarro moment during the Kamala Harris campaign. Do you remember this? When she did this podcast with, isn't this woman who does this podcast like it's like a sexual oriented podcast, and I think they talk about a lot of like sex and stuff, and she's wearing the Harris Waltz fake Hunter. Ooh, I like my guns, and I like Tim Walz hat, which never went anywhere except as again a punchline or a joke. And this podcast host went down on her knees like she was receiving the Holy Eucharist in a Catholic church, and Whitmer, as I guess the priest, offered the Dorito, mocking communion and the real presence of the Lord. See, that's Gretchen Whitmer. That's the real Gretchen Whitmer. Unafraid, showing up. She's not shy. She's not hiding her face there. She's proud. Look at her face. That's Gretchen Whitmer. And this is Gretchen Whitmer. Will forever always be Gretchen Whitmer. Profile and courage. Good for you, Gretch. Keep up the good work. You know what, Democrats? Nominate her. Do it.